The Galvran Dominion had conquered 37 star systems in less than a century. Every war followed the same pattern. A short orbital strike, a display of overwhelming force, and then surrender. Species after species bent their heads when faced with Galvran technology and discipline. Earth was expected to be no different. From the command bridge of the flagship Ascendant Will, General Zalther observed the blue planet turning slowly below. It was beautiful in a simple way, full of oceans and scattered clouds. Too fragile, he thought. The scans showed outdated satellites, inefficient power grids, and weapon systems that relied on crude chemical reactions. The human species had only recently stepped beyond their home system. They were bold, perhaps, but inexperienced. The invasion began at dawn on the planet's largest landmasses. Orbital cannons fired precise strikes, targeting communication hubs, military bases, and transportation centers. The Galvran believed in efficiency. There was no need to destroy cities when breaking command and control would be enough. Explosions bloomed across the surface like brief flashes of light. Human defenses responded, but their missiles were slow, their targeting clumsy. Galvran point defense systems intercepted them easily. Zalther allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Another clean operation, another lesson taught. Dropships descended through the atmosphere, glowing as they cut through the sky. Inside them, Galvran ground forces prepared for deployment. They wore heavy armor and carried plasma rifles capable of burning through most known materials. According to projections, organized resistance would collapse within 2 planetary cycles. When the first troops landed, they encountered scattered human units. These soldiers wore mismatched gear, some of it damaged or outdated. Their weapons fired solid projectiles instead of energy bolts. Many Galvran officers assumed this phase would be brief. A show of force would end it. But the humans did not behave as expected. Instead of forming defensive lines, the human units retreated quickly into ruined buildings, forests, and underground tunnels. They did not transmit surrender signals. They did not attempt formal communication. They simply vanished. Hours passed. Then the first Galvran patrol failed to report in. At first, this was dismissed as equipment malfunction. Human interference with Galvran systems was considered unlikely. A second patrol was dispatched to the same area, then a third. None returned. Zalther leaned forward as tactical feeds appeared on the main display. Drone footage showed burned-out Galvran vehicles, their armor breached in places it was never meant to be. The damage was irregular, chaotic. Explosives had been placed at close range. The humans had waited. They had allowed the Galvran forces to advance, confident and exposed. "This is not standard resistance behavior," one of the generals said quietly. Zalther agreed, though he did not say it aloud. Most species attempted to protect population centers or leadership structures. Humans were doing neither. Instead, they were attacking logistics. Fuel convoys disappeared. Supply depots exploded hours after being secured. Communication relays went dark one by one. Even more troubling was how quickly it happened. Human units appeared to operate independently without waiting for orders. When cut off, they did not freeze or scatter. They adapted. They used civilian structures as cover. They modified their weapons. Some Galvran soldiers reported being attacked with tools not meant for combat at all. A live feed from a helmet camera suddenly filled the screen. A Galvran trooper moved cautiously through a narrow urban street. Smoke filled the air, debris lay everywhere. The trooper raised his rifle, scanning. Something dropped from above. The feed shook violently. The camera spun, showing brief flashes of human figures moving with speed and purpose. The transmission cut out. Silence followed on the bridge. Zalther felt a strange tension in his chest. He had seen countless battles, countless deaths. This was different. The humans were not fighting like a species that knew it would lose. They were fighting like one that believed survival was possible, no matter the cost. He ordered aerial scans of the affected zones. The results were confusing. Human heat signatures appeared, disappeared, then reappeared in unexpected places. Their movements were erratic but effective. Galvran predictive models struggled to keep up. On the ground, Galvran commanders began reporting close combat encounters. Humans charged into engagement ranges considered suicidal by Dominion standards. They used smoke, darkness, and noise to mask their approach. In several cases, Galvran units were forced to retreat from positions they technically still controlled. A junior officer hesitated before speaking. "General, human wounded are continuing to fight. Some have been observed protecting others instead of seeking medical aid." By the second planetary cycle, Galvran forces technically held most major cities. Flags were raised. Broadcasts were sent declaring occupation. According to doctrine, resistance should have ended. Instead, it intensified. Human attacks became bolder. A secured Galvran command post was overrun overnight by a group using captured weapons and improvised explosives. Surveillance showed the humans studying Galvran armor mid-battle, adjusting their aim, learning in real time. Zalther reviewed the footage repeatedly. These humans were not fearless. Their heart rates spiked. Their movements showed stress and exhaustion, but they advanced anyway. "They are afraid," Zalther murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "And they fight regardless." One commander described it simply: "They fight like the war is personal." He began to understand. Humans had evolved on a world full of predators, disasters, and scarcity. They had learned to cooperate under pressure, to innovate with limited resources, to endure pain and loss without surrender. War was not an abstract concept to them. It was something they had practiced against themselves for generations. Zalther stared at the rotating image of Earth again. The planet no longer looked fragile. "This was supposed to be easy," he said quietly. No one disagreed. Far below, in the shadows of ruined cities and forests, human soldiers prepared for the next strike. They did not know the name of the alien general watching them. They did not care. To them, this was simple. Someone had come to their home, and humans did not give up their home easily. The human resistance did not stop with small attacks. By the fourth planetary cycle, it became clear that Earth was not going to surrender easily. General Zalther watched the reports pile up on his display. Each one told the same story: humans attacking, disappearing, and reappearing in impossible places. The Dominion had faced many species before, but nothing like this. Humans were not just resisting, they were learning faster than expected. In the ruins of a major city, a small human squad moved through crumbling buildings. Their uniforms were patched and mismatched, some parts scavenged from abandoned vehicles. They carried rifles, pistols, and homemade explosives, but it was not the equipment that made them dangerous. It was the way they thought. Every move had a purpose. Every action had a calculation, even if it seemed impulsive. Captain Mara led the squad. She was young but sharp, and her eyes scanned constantly for threats. A Galvran patrol had been spotted on the edge of the district. Myra whispered instructions, and her team melted into the shadows, using rubble and fallen walls as cover. When the patrol came close, the humans struck. Explosions ripped through the streets, followed by precise rifle fire. The Galvran soldiers tried to regroup, but the humans moved too fast, disappearing from one side of the street and reappearing on the other. By the time reinforcements arrived, the patrol was gone, leaving only the evidence of destruction behind. Back on the Ascendant Will, Zalther could hardly believe the footage. His officers tried to explain the humans' tactics, but there was no precedent. Humans did not fight like any other species he had studied. They improvised, adapted, and attacked unpredictably. They were like a swarm of predators, moving with coordination that seemed impossible given their small numbers. "General," one officer said, "they are not following conventional tactics. They are thinking outside the doctrine." It moved with speed and precision that would have impressed even elite Dominion troops. "They are learning from us," Zalther said quietly. "Every strike, every attack, they study it and use it against us." Supply lines were ambushed, convoys destroyed, communication relays sabotaged. Dominion soldiers were being forced into positions where their technology meant little. The humans turned their own weapons against them, using captured equipment to attack from angles the Dominion had never considered. On another front in the northern forests, a larger human force prepared for a counterattack. They had been tracking a Dominion battalion for days, learning its movements and patterns. When the time was right, they struck at dawn. Trees and mist concealed their advance. As the battalion moved through the forest, humans attacked from hidden positions. They used noise, fire, and sudden bursts of rifle fire to confuse and scatter the soldiers. The battle was not long, but it was devastating. The Dominion battalion was forced to retreat, leaving behind equipment and supplies. Humans recovered what they could and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. The forest was silent once again, as if nothing had happened. Zalther studied the intelligence reports carefully. It was not just luck or bravery that made humans dangerous. It was their ability to adapt and cooperate under pressure. They could endure losses without losing focus. They could learn from mistakes and immediately adjust tactics. Their resistance was not random. It was calculated, methodical, and relentless. One analyst pointed out a disturbing trend. Humans were fighting even when wounded. Soldiers who should have been out of action continued to attack, protect others, and complete missions. Their commitment to their comrades and to the survival of their species was beyond anything the Dominion had encountered. "They are not afraid of dying," the analyst said. "They see it as a challenge, not the end." Every operation, every ambush, every act of resistance showed a level of resilience that was almost alien. Meanwhile, humans continued to organize themselves in ways the Dominion could not predict. Small units acted independently but with common purpose. They shared information quickly, adapted their tactics, and coordinated attacks across multiple regions. Even without advanced communication networks, they managed to outmaneuver the Dominion at every turn. In one instance, a human squad captured a Dominion supply depot. They used it to trap an entire battalion, redirecting soldiers into a prepared kill zone. The Dominion troops were highly trained and well-armed, but they were no match for the humans' planning and improvisation. By the time reinforcements arrived, the humans had vanished into the surrounding terrain, leaving only destruction behind. The psychological impact on Dominion soldiers was significant. Reports of human attacks spread fear and confusion. Soldiers began hesitating, unsure of where humans might strike next. Zalther noticed the change in his officers. Confidence was giving way to caution, and in war, caution slowed progress. Back on Earth, Mara and her squad received intelligence about another Dominion battalion approaching. They did not panic. Instead, they prepared traps, scouted positions, and coordinated movements. They understood the battalion's patterns and weaknesses. When the battle began, it was swift and precise. Humans struck from multiple directions, exploiting terrain and surprise. Dominion troops fell back, leaving valuable resources behind. In another city, a small group of humans disabled a communications hub. Without it, Dominion units could not coordinate effectively. The humans worked silently, quickly, and efficiently. Even when Dominion drones patrolled the area, they evaded detection, using shadows, debris, and natural cover. By the end of the cycle, it became clear that humans were not just resisting, they were shaping the battlefield. Zalther realized that the Dominion's technological advantage was no longer decisive. Humans had turned their weaknesses into strengths, using speed, cunning, and adaptability to level the playing field. "General," an officer said during a meeting, "they are learning faster than we can respond. Every strategy we implement is countered in days, sometimes hours. Every failure strengthens them, and they are relentless." They exploited the Dominion's expectations, moving where they were least anticipated and striking where it hurt the most. In one daring maneuver, humans captured a Dominion weapons cache and used the technology to launch a counterattack on a nearby outpost. The outpost was destroyed, and the humans disappeared before reinforcements could respond. Dominion intelligence struggled to track them, as humans seemed to anticipate every move. Zalther began reviewing historical files about humans. He learned that their species had faced natural disasters, predators, and internal conflicts for millennia. They had survived against odds that should have destroyed them. It was not technology, nor strength, nor numbers that defined them. It was resilience, ingenuity, and willpower. He realized that the Dominion had underestimated something fundamental. Humans were not a species that followed predictable patterns. They did not surrender when logic dictated. They did not fight like other species. They adapted, endured, and struck back with precision and purpose. On the ground, Mara's squad prepared for the next operation. They had studied Dominion patrols, supply lines, and communication hubs. They moved with confidence, knowing that even if they faced superior firepower, their intelligence and teamwork would give them an edge. The human soldiers had no illusions about the danger they faced. They knew the Dominion was stronger in technology, numbers, and experience. Yet they did not hesitate. Every strike, every trap, every ambush was a message. Humans would not surrender, humans would fight, and humans would survive. Zalther watched another battle unfold through his observation feeds. A small human unit had taken on a much larger Dominion force, using traps, improvised explosives, and precise fire. Dominion soldiers fell back in confusion. The humans withdrew as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind chaos and confusion. For the first time in his career, Zalther felt something unfamiliar. Fear was not the right word, but unease came close. The humans were not just resisting, they were learning, adapting, and growing stronger with every encounter. The Dominion's previous victories on other worlds seemed irrelevant. Earth was different. By the end of the cycle, Zalther made a decision. He would study the humans personally. He would observe, analyze, and attempt to understand what made them so dangerous. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most advanced, but they were cunning, adaptive, and unyielding. And in war, unyielding often meant unstoppable. The humans did not know about the alien general observing their every move. They did not care. To them, the battle was about survival, about protecting their home, and about proving that they could endure against any threat. Zalther realized that underestimating them had been a mistake. The humans were not the weak, primitive species the Dominion had assumed. They were students of survival, masters of adaptation, and fighters who refused to give up. The war for Earth had only just begun. And already it was becoming clear that the humans were not just survivors. They were a force that could not be ignored, a species that could change the course of the conflict entirely. No species in Dominion history had ever been so unpredictable, so relentless, or so frightening in their determination. And Zalther understood, finally, that this war would not be like any he had fought before. Humans were not merely resisting. They were transforming the battlefield into a proving ground for something far more dangerous than any weapon. They were proving the power of resilience, cunning, and the will to survive. In the shadows of ruined cities and dense forests, human soldiers prepared for the next fight, unaware of the general watching from orbit. They did not need to know him or his intentions. They only needed to know one thing: they would not surrender, they would not retreat, and they would not stop. And that was enough. The Dominion Command had started to realize something the entire galaxy had never expected. Humans did not fight like any other species. General Zalther spent long hours watching battle feeds, studying troop movements, and analyzing human tactics. Every engagement, every ambush, every strike revealed that humans thought differently. They were unpredictable, adaptive, and fearless in ways no algorithm could calculate. On the outskirts of a ruined city, a group of humans moved like shadows through the rubble. Captain Mara led them with a calm intensity. Each member of her squad knew their role, but their actions were not mechanical. They adapted constantly, responding to changes in the environment and the enemy's movements with instinctive precision. The Dominion had expected humans to panic, to scatter, to break under pressure. Instead, the humans seemed to thrive in chaos. One of Mara's soldiers, a young man named Lion, noticed a Dominion patrol moving toward their position. Without waiting for orders, he set up a small trap using rubble and debris, creating an artificial bottleneck. When the patrol reached it, explosives detonated with perfect timing. The patrol was eliminated before they could call for backup. Across the city, another squad used the abandoned subway tunnels to flank a Dominion outpost. They moved silently, using the darkness as cover. When they emerged behind the outpost, they caught the Dominion troops by surprise. A short, brutal fight ended with the humans in control. They took supplies and equipment before disappearing back into the tunnels. Back on the Ascendant Wheel, General Zalther could hardly keep up. Every screen displayed a different incident where humans had turned what should have been an advantage into a trap. Dominion officers tried to explain, citing tactical manuals and battle experience. None of it applied. Humans did not follow expected patterns. They improvised, adapted, and learned in real time. "They are studying us," Zalther said. "Every engagement teaches them. Every strike, every failure, every success is part of their knowledge. Humans turn weaknesses into strengths. That is what makes them dangerous." When the convoy arrived, humans launched their assault. Explosions rocked the pass, and Dominion soldiers were forced to retreat into the mountains. But the humans did not follow blindly. They used natural cover, picking off stragglers and guiding the convoy into positions where additional traps awaited. The battle lasted less than an hour, but the results were devastating. The Dominion convoy was destroyed, supplies lost, and morale shaken. The humans did not celebrate. They collected what they could, evacuated the wounded, and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. Zalther reviewed the footage with growing unease. The humans' ability to coordinate across distances without centralized command was extraordinary. Their adaptability was unparalleled. They did not panic. They did not retreat unnecessarily. They used every advantage the environment offered and created opportunities where none existed. Meanwhile, in the forest to the north, another human unit set up an ambush for a Dominion patrol using captured equipment. They had studied the enemy's behavior and anticipated their route. When the patrol arrived, the humans struck from hidden positions. Dominion soldiers tried to regroup, but the humans' timing and precision forced them into retreat. Casualties mounted on both sides, but the psychological effect on the Dominion was severe. Soldiers began hesitating, uncertain of where humans might strike next. Zalther noticed the change in his officers. Confidence was giving way to caution, and in war, caution could be fatal. At the same time, humans were learning from each encounter. Mara's squad had been observing Dominion patrols for days, noting patterns and routines. When the opportunity arose, they struck with surgical precision, eliminating key targets and disabling communication nodes. Each strike taught them more about the Dominion, making the next operation even more effective. In a separate city, humans disabled a Dominion command hub. They infiltrated the facility using darkness, stealth, and a deep understanding of the building's layout. Within minutes, the hub was under their control, Dominion communications were disrupted, and the humans vanished into the city. By the time reinforcements arrived, there was no trace of them. The cumulative effect of these operations was staggering. Dominion troops began reporting incidents where humans fought even when severely wounded. Soldiers who should have been incapacitated continued to engage, protecting their comrades and completing missions. This level of resilience was incomprehensible to Zalther's officers, who were trained to value preservation and efficiency. "They do not fight for themselves," an officer noted. "They fight for each other and for survival. It is unusual. Humans do not seem to have one." Elsewhere, human engineers modified captured Dominion technology, using it to launch small counterattacks. Shields were reversed, weapons were repurposed, and communication systems were turned against their creators. Each operation demonstrated ingenuity and adaptability far beyond what the Dominion expected from a species they considered primitive. Zalther convened a council to discuss the situation. His officers were concerned, anxious, and frustrated. "General," one said, "we cannot predict their movements. We cannot anticipate their strikes. Our technology is superior, but it is not enough." They were efficient, relentless, and adaptive. Then he spoke. "We have underestimated them. That is the mistake. They are not just survivors. They are strategists, engineers, and fighters, and they grow stronger with every engagement." They had learned from previous battles, studied Dominion routines, and planned their moves carefully. They knew the enemy was stronger, but they also knew their strengths. Coordination, adaptability, and sheer willpower made them formidable. When the attack began, it was swift and precise. Mara's squad neutralized patrols, captured supplies, and disrupted communications. Dominion soldiers were caught off guard, unable to respond effectively. The humans withdrew as quickly as they appeared, leaving confusion and destruction behind. The Dominion's confidence began to waver. Reports of human resilience and ingenuity spread through the ranks. Soldiers questioned their orders, officers hesitated, and morale faltered. Zalther observed the change with a growing sense of unease. Humans continued to operate independently but with common purpose. They shared intelligence, coordinated movements across cities and regions, and adapted to every countermeasure the Dominion deployed. No tactic, no weapon, no strategy went unexamined. Humans learned quickly, implemented improvements, and struck back harder each time. Even when wounded or outnumbered, humans fought with determination. They protected each other, completed missions, and refused to surrender. Dominion soldiers began referring to them as unstoppable in reports. Zalther did not dismiss the term. He understood the truth. Humans were not just resisting, they were shaping the battlefield to their advantage. By the end of the fifth cycle, it was clear that the Dominion's invasion was not proceeding as planned. Humans had turned every engagement into a learning opportunity, every battle into a test of adaptability, and every victory into a lesson for the next operation. Dominion officers realized that conventional strategies were failing, and morale began to crumble. Zalther studied the humans more closely. He discovered their history of survival on a harsh planet, their ability to adapt to disasters and predators, and their talent for cooperation under extreme conditions. Humans had survived countless challenges long before the Dominion arrived. War was not something new to them. It was a skill honed over millennia. On the battlefield, Mara's squad continued to strike with precision. They captured Dominion outposts, disrupted supply lines, and eliminated key targets. Each operation was carefully planned and executed. They did not fight for glory or recognition. They fought to survive and to protect their home. Zalther began to understand the lesson humans were teaching. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most advanced. Their power lay in resilience, intelligence, and determination. They adapted, they endured, and they learned from every encounter. In Dominion history, no species had ever resisted so effectively. The humans were unpredictable, relentless, and adaptive. They did not follow conventional tactics. They did not break under pressure. They did not surrender. The general realized that Earth would not fall easily. Humans had transformed the battlefield into a proving ground, showing the Dominion that resilience, ingenuity, and determination could overcome technological superiority. Humans were not just surviving, they were teaching the Dominion a lesson they would not forget. They were showing that no matter the odds, they would endure, and for the first time, Zalther felt the weight of the challenge ahead. The war for Earth had become a war of wits, willpower, and adaptability. Humans were not just participants, they were masters of survival, shaping the battle in ways the Dominion could not anticipate. No species had ever been so difficult to defeat. Humans were proving that victory was not always determined by strength or technology. It could also be determined by courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to surrender. Zalther watched the humans prepare for their next strike. He understood that the conflict was far from over, and that each engagement would test the Dominion in ways they had never experienced. Humans were resilient, unpredictable, and unstoppable in their determination to survive. The alien general finally admitted the truth to himself. Underestimating humans had been a grave mistake. They were more than a species. They were a force shaped by survival, intelligence, and unyielding will. And they would not stop until the Dominion had learned the hard way that Earth belonged to humans, and no invasion could take it from them. The war for Earth had entered a new phase. What began as a confident invasion by the Galvran Dominion had transformed into a battlefield full of uncertainty, chaos, and relentless human resistance. General Zalther watched from orbit as reports came in from every continent. The humans were no longer merely defending. They were striking back with planning, precision, and fearlessness that shook Dominion confidence to its core. In the ruins of a coastal city, Mara's squad moved quickly through collapsed streets. They had captured intelligence about an approaching Dominion battalion and were preparing an ambush. Each member carried weapons and explosives, but it was their understanding of the terrain, timing, and enemy behavior that made them deadly. Mara studied a map projected on her handheld device, plotting the paths the enemy would likely take. "We hit them here," she said quietly, pointing to a narrow street flanked by destroyed buildings. "Then we funnel them into the square. Their vehicles won't fit, and we can control the fight from multiple angles." Humans did not need large armies to win battles. They needed intelligence, patience, and precision. The Dominion battalion arrived as expected. Vehicles rumbled into the city, soldiers moving confidently, assuming the humans would flee. But Mara's squad had prepared carefully. Explosives detonated on command, blocking escape routes. Rifle fire rained down from hidden positions. The Dominion soldiers were forced to stop, confused and trapped. Humans advanced through cover, moving with coordination that seemed almost unnatural. Each movement had a purpose. Each action created new opportunities. Soldiers who should have been pinned down continued to fight, dragging wounded comrades to safety while maintaining pressure on the enemy. From orbit, Zalther watched the battle unfold. His officers were tense. They had anticipated resistance, but nothing like this. Humans were exploiting every weakness, turning chaos into a weapon. The battalion, despite superior numbers and equipment, was forced to retreat. Supplies were captured, vehicles disabled, and morale shattered. Across the planet, similar operations were underway. Small human units coordinated attacks on supply lines, communication hubs, and outposts. They moved silently through forests, mountains, and ruined cities, striking where the Dominion least expected. Every engagement taught them something new. They adapted to Dominion tactics, using traps, ambushes, and captured equipment to their advantage. In one daring maneuver, humans captured a Dominion weapons depot. Instead of destroying it, they used the equipment to launch a counterattack on a nearby outpost. Dominion soldiers were caught off guard as humans deployed shields and weapons against them. The outpost was lost, and humans withdrew as quickly as they appeared, leaving confusion and panic behind. Zalther reviewed the footage with a growing sense of unease. The humans' ability to coordinate, adapt, and learn from every encounter was unlike anything he had ever seen. They did not wait for orders from a central command. They did not follow predictable patterns. They acted independently yet in harmony, as if each small unit understood the larger strategy instinctively. "They are teaching us a lesson," Zalther said quietly to his officers. Every engagement shows intelligence, creativity, and endurance. They are not just fighting, they are reshaping the battlefield. Humans were proving that these advantages could be neutralized by cunning, adaptability, and willpower. In the forests of the north, a large human force prepared for another operation. Using captured communications equipment, they monitored Dominion movements and predicted patrol routes. When a convoy entered the forest path, the humans set a series of traps guiding the soldiers into a kill zone. Explosives detonated in precise sequence, disabling vehicles and cutting off reinforcements. The battle was swift and devastating. Dominion soldiers were forced into retreat, leaving supplies and equipment behind. Humans did not linger. They collected what they could, evacuated the wounded, and vanished into the dense forest. The Dominion had no time to regroup. Meanwhile, Mara's squad continued operations in the city. They disabled communication hubs, intercepted reinforcements, and captured Dominion equipment. Every success increased their confidence and expanded their knowledge. Each member of the squad learned from experience, refining tactics, and anticipating enemy behavior. On the Dominion command bridge, tension grew. Officers reported increasing losses, confusion among troops, and failure of conventional strategies. The humans were not merely surviving. They were actively winning small battles, disrupting supply chains, and weakening the Dominion's presence. Zalther understood that the war for Earth could not be won through sheer force. The humans' adaptability and resilience had transformed them into a formidable enemy. He ordered additional analysis, hoping to understand their behavior and predict future moves. But every report, every feed, only confirmed what he feared. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and capable of learning faster than the Dominion could adapt. In a mountainous region, another human unit prepared a counterattack. They had observed Dominion patrols for days, noting patterns, weaknesses, and timing. When the patrol approached, the humans struck from multiple angles, using explosives, rifles, and improvised traps. The Dominion soldiers were overwhelmed, forced to retreat with heavy losses. The psychological impact on Dominion troops was severe. Fear spread through the ranks as humans continued to strike unpredictably. Officers hesitated, soldiers questioned orders, and morale faltered. Even elite units struggled to maintain composure when faced with humans who fought with determination, intelligence, and teamwork. On a coastal front, humans launched a coordinated operation to disrupt naval supply lines. Small squads used captured vessels and equipment to intercept Dominion ships, disabling them with precise attacks. The humans withdrew before reinforcements could arrive, leaving the Dominion fleet scrambling to respond. Zalther noted the pattern. Humans were not fighting for territory alone. They were dismantling the Dominion's ability to wage war effectively. Each strike, each ambush, each captured supply depot weakened the enemy while strengthening the humans' understanding of their opponent. Mara's squad continued operations in urban areas. They disabled communication networks, intercepted reinforcements, and used captured Dominion technology against them. Each mission was executed with precision, efficiency, and creativity. Even when outnumbered or outgunned, humans used intelligence, terrain, and coordination to gain the advantage. Back on the Ascendant Will, Zalther could not ignore the growing evidence. The humans' resistance was not random or desperate. It was calculated, deliberate, and effective. They studied the Dominion's moves, adapted to their tactics, and used every opportunity to strike strategically. "They are not just resisting," Zalther said to his council. "They are leading the fight, shaping the battlefield, and teaching us how vulnerable we are." Across the planet, human forces continued to disrupt Dominion operations. They destroyed supply convoys, sabotaged communication networks, and captured equipment to use against the enemy. Each action was precise, deliberate, and effective. Humans were proving that victory did not always depend on strength or numbers. It depended on intelligence, coordination, and the will to survive. Mara's squad prepared for one of the largest operations yet. They had learned from previous encounters and were ready to execute a complex plan involving multiple units, traps, and deception. Timing, coordination, and communication were critical. Each member understood the mission and their role perfectly. When the operation began, it was executed flawlessly. Dominion patrols were lured into ambushes, vehicles were disabled, and soldiers were forced into retreat. The humans captured supplies and equipment before disappearing into the urban maze. The Dominion troops were left confused, demoralized, and vulnerable. The scale of human operations grew with each day. Small squads coordinated across regions, using intelligence, observation, and improvisation to strike at key targets. Dominion troops struggled to respond effectively. Every strike, every ambush, every captured facility weakened the Dominion's hold on Earth. Zalther realized the full truth. Humans were not only capable fighters, they were a strategic force. They learned, adapted, and improved with each engagement. Their resilience, intelligence, and coordination made them unpredictable and unstoppable in ways the Dominion had never seen. Even when wounded, outnumbered, or outgunned, humans continued to fight. They protected their comrades, completed missions, and struck decisively at the enemy. Dominion soldiers reported them as fearless, relentless, and almost impossible to defeat. On the command bridge, Zalther acknowledged a sobering reality. The Dominion could not conquer Earth using conventional tactics. The humans' adaptability and resilience had transformed them into a formidable enemy. Every engagement, every battle, every operation reinforced their strength and intelligence. Across the planet, Mara's squad prepared for the next operation. They had captured intelligence, studied Dominion patterns, and refined their tactics. They understood that the fight was far from over, but they were ready. Humans did not surrender, did not retreat unnecessarily, and did not fight recklessly. They fought with purpose, intelligence, and determination. Zalther watched the humans prepare for battle and felt the weight of what they represented. They were more than survivors. They were teachers, strategists, and warriors, demonstrating that resilience, intelligence, and willpower could overcome technology and numbers. No species had ever resisted the Dominion so effectively. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and capable of turning every engagement into an opportunity. They were shaping the battlefield in ways the Dominion could not anticipate, and Zalther understood that the war for Earth would not be won easily. Humans were not merely surviving. They were winning battles, learning from them, and preparing for the next. Their determination and ingenuity had transformed them into a force that could not be ignored. And as Mara's squad moved silently through the ruins, ready to strike again, Zalther realized the truth. Humans were teaching the Dominion a lesson that no one in its history had ever learned. They were resilient, clever, and unstoppable when fighting to survive and protect their home. The war for Earth had reached a turning point. Humans were no longer on the defensive. They were the masters of the battlefield, and the Dominion was beginning to understand the consequences of underestimating them. The war for Earth had reached a critical point. Across continents, humans had not just resisted. They had forced the Dominion to retreat from key areas, disrupted supply chains, and turned the battlefield into a proving ground for ingenuity, courage, and survival. General Zalther watched reports with growing concern. Humans were no longer a minor nuisance. They were a strategic threat that could not be ignored. In a mountainous region, Mara's squad prepared for one of their most ambitious operations yet. They had intercepted Dominion intelligence revealing the location of a command outpost. The outpost was heavily defended, but humans had studied patrol patterns, terrain features, and timing. They had coordinated with other units to create diversions and traps. Mara examined the map carefully, then looked at her team. "This is our chance to disrupt them in a big way. Everyone knows the plan. We move fast, strike hard, and withdraw before they can react." Another soldier, Tessa, carried lightweight explosives for key choke points. Each human understood the mission, the risks, and the stakes. They did not hesitate. When they reached the outpost, the operation began. Explosives disabled perimeter defenses, and the humans moved in coordinated waves. Dominion soldiers were caught off guard. Despite their superior armor and numbers, they struggled to respond to attacks from multiple angles. Mara's squad advanced, disabling communication hubs and capturing vital supplies. Dominion troops were forced into retreat, leaving the outpost in human hands. The victory was swift and decisive. Mara's squad withdrew as reinforcements arrived, disappearing into the surrounding terrain before the Dominion could reorganize. The operation boosted morale across the resistance. Human fighters realized that they could challenge the Dominion directly and emerge victorious. Across the planet, other human units were carrying out similar operations. Cities, forests, and mountains became battlefields where humans struck strategically, learned from each engagement, and adapted their tactics continuously. Dominion forces had the technology, the numbers, and the training, but humans had resilience, creativity, and the ability to anticipate and exploit weaknesses. Zalther studied each report carefully. Human forces were doing more than surviving. They were forcing Dominion withdrawals. Entire regions that were thought to be secure were now contested. Humans were using captured Dominion equipment to launch counterattacks, disabling supply convoys and ambushing patrols. "They are more than survivors," Zalther said quietly to his officers. "They are engineers, strategists, and warriors. And they are teaching us something we cannot ignore." In one decisive engagement, humans launched a coordinated attack on a Dominion fleet stationed near the coast. Using captured vessels and improvised technology, human forces disabled several ships before reinforcements could arrive. Dominion soldiers were forced to retreat. The humans did not linger. They disappeared into the night, leaving destruction and confusion behind. Mara's squad continued to operate in urban areas. They had disabled communication nodes, intercepted reinforcements, and turned captured equipment against the enemy. Each mission was carefully planned and executed with precision. Even when facing superior numbers or firepower, humans used strategy, terrain, and teamwork to gain the advantage. On the Ascendant Will, Zalther reviewed the latest intelligence. Humans were learning at an astonishing rate. Every battle taught them something new, and every success made them more dangerous. Dominion forces were no longer in control of the planet. They were being manipulated, forced to react, and constantly under pressure. "They are not just fighting to survive," Zalther said. "They are controlling the battlefield. They decide when, where, and how the fight happens, and they adapt faster than we can anticipate." The Dominion found itself unable to respond effectively. Supply lines were cut, communication networks disrupted, and troops were trapped in hostile terrain. In one daring operation, humans captured a Dominion weapons depot in the desert. Using the supplies, they launched a surprise strike on a heavily fortified outpost. Dominion troops were overwhelmed. Vehicles were disabled, weapon systems neutralized, and the outpost fell into human hands. The operation was executed flawlessly, demonstrating that humans could use enemy technology against them with devastating effect. Zalther's concern grew. Every engagement revealed that humans were not only resisting, they were mastering warfare on their own terms. They did not rely on brute strength or numbers. They relied on intelligence, adaptability, and the determination to survive. Meanwhile, Mara's squad was tasked with a mission that could turn the tide of the Northern Front. Dominion forces had established a stronghold that threatened surrounding settlements. Mara's team would need to infiltrate, sabotage, and withdraw before the enemy could react. They approached the stronghold under cover of darkness, moving silently through forests and valleys. Using intelligence gathered over days of observation, they bypassed patrols and traps. Explosives were set at key locations, and jamming devices disabled communications. When the attack commenced, Dominion soldiers were caught completely off guard. The battle was intense but brief. Mara's squad neutralized defenses, captured critical supplies, and withdrew without casualties. Dominion forces were left disorganized, their stronghold compromised, and their ability to control the region weakened. Humans had turned the operation into a textbook example of tactical superiority. Back on the Ascendant Will, Zalther could no longer ignore the truth. Humans were more than a nuisance. They were a force capable of forcing strategic retreats, disrupting operations, and shaping the battlefield. No species in Dominion history had demonstrated this level of resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. Dominion forces began pulling back from several regions. The humans' continuous pressure had created chaos, confusion, and fear. Soldiers hesitated to advance, supply lines faltered, and officers questioned orders. Humans were not merely surviving, they were dictating the terms of the conflict. Mara's squad continued operations across multiple fronts. They captured outposts, disrupted supply chains, and neutralized Dominion patrols. Each operation increased their knowledge and refined their tactics. Even when outnumbered, humans used strategy and coordination to prevail. In a final decisive campaign, human forces coordinated across continents. Intelligence, traps, and precision strikes were combined to force Dominion retreats. Supply lines were destroyed, communication networks sabotaged, and key battalions neutralized. The Dominion's hold on Earth began to collapse. Zalther watched helplessly as humans systematically dismantled his forces. Every engagement, every battle, and every operation reinforced the humans' adaptability, courage, and ingenuity. They were relentless, unpredictable, and unstoppable in their determination to survive and protect their home. At the heart of the final campaign, Mara's squad struck a Dominion command center. Using all the knowledge, experience, and equipment they had gathered, They neutralized defenses, disabled communications, and captured strategic resources. The Dominion troops were forced to retreat. The humans withdrew as planned, leaving chaos behind and demonstrating once again that they could control the battlefield. The psychological impact on the Dominion was profound. Soldiers feared the unpredictable humans. Officers hesitated to issue commands. The belief in technological superiority and disciplined ranks crumbled under the relentless pressure of human ingenuity and determination. Zalther finally admitted the truth to himself. Humans were not just survivors, they were masters of adaptation, strategy, and warfare. Every battle had made them stronger, smarter, and more dangerous. Dominion forces could no longer advance without heavy losses, and continued occupation risked total collapse. The decision was made to retreat. Dominion fleets withdrew from orbit, ground forces pulled back, and occupied regions were abandoned. Humans had forced the aliens to leave, not through overwhelming technology, but through resilience, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Across the planet, humans emerged victorious. Cities, forests, mountains, and deserts had become proving grounds for courage, strategy, and survival. Mara's squad regrouped with other units, sharing intelligence and planning for the future. They had defended their home, disrupted the invaders, and demonstrated that humans could endure and adapt against any threat. Zalther recorded his final report. It was a warning for all future Dominion generations. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced species. They were something far more dangerous. They adapted, learned, and endured. They fought when logic said to surrender and survived against overwhelming odds. The humans are not merely a species, he wrote. They are a force. They are unpredictable, relentless, and capable of shaping the battlefield to their advantage. Do not provoke them again. Survival is their specialty. Cities repaired, supply lines restored, and communication networks reestablished. Humans did not celebrate in arrogance. They had simply survived, adapted, and proven themselves against a threat that many thought unstoppable. They had endured. They had adapted, and they had fought with courage, intelligence, and unyielding determination. The war for Earth had ended, but the story of human resilience would echo across the galaxy. Other species would remember the humans not for their technology, but for their courage, ingenuity, and the ability to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity. And in the quiet moments after the battles, Mara's squad stood together, looking across the planet they had defended. They had no illusions about the cost, but they understood one truth: humans were not meant to surrender. They survived because they adapted, they endured because they cared, and they won because they refused to accept defeat. General Zalther's final words in the report summarized the lesson of the war. Do not underestimate humanity. They endure, they adapt, they fight. And they survive when nothing else would.